Today's video will talk about very important rules to keep in mind when naming compounds such as ketones, which end with an -on, aldehydes, which would end with an -al, alcohols ending with an -ol, versus carboxylic acid derivatives. So in the above example, to name those, you would just take the alkane, remove the E, and then add these endings. Really remember this. It might seem very taken for granted, but as the molecule gets more complicated, you really learn to appreciate it. Also, at least in our class, our prof prefers us to indicate the position of a ketone, even if it's self-explanatory. Like this can only be at the second position, but just add 2O for safety. Okay. Whereas for carboxylic acid derivatives, you will take the carboxylic acid, which is oic acid, take away the ic acid, sometimes keep the O, and then add the following endings. Now I want to note something kind of strange here, is that you might name something as hexanoic acid, which is correct, it's IUPAC. But if you want to name a dioic acid, you will have to include the E at the end. So now this is hexane dioic acid. Okay. Some of the derivatives include amide, such as acetamide, or propanamide, or eel chlorides, such as propanoyl chloride, esters that ends with -08, such as ethyl propanoates, as well as nitriles. Nitriles are also a bit odd. You will name it as alkane nitrile, such as hexane nitrile, keeping the E. And the nitrile's carbon is considered part of a chain. Now some of these names, when they are a ring, have slightly different endings. For nitriles, it becomes a carbonitrile, so if it's a ring, it's a carbonitrile ending. For aldehydes as well, if it's a ring, we name it as carbaldehyde. And of course, with these functional groups, some of them, if they are on a benzene ring, they have other endings as well, but that will be for another video. Okay, now important things that I need to note is that anytime you are tempted to say, oh, there is 2 carbons here, that means this must be ethane prefix, or this has 1 carbon, so this must be a methane prefix. This may be true for systematic naming, but for IUPAC, or depending on your prof's preferences, anytime you're tempted to use these, you should use instead acete prefixes or form prefixes. Now the tricky thing here is sometimes acetyl can be spelled with an YL or with an O. So the only time that it's spelled with an O, acetyl, is when it's on a nitrile. And other cases where it might be spelled with a YL would be acetyl chloride, acetyl chloride. This will be YL ending, and this will be the O ending. Okay, so let's do one very fun example. And this is a good example that shows you why it's important to memorize the way to systematically name these molecules. Otherwise, when you combine several functional groups together, it's easy to get confused. So here we identify functional group. Well, I see benzene, but there's another functional group here, and that's an ester. So we name this as an ester. Now, because there's so many things involved, it's easy to get lost. So really memorize these simple rules. It's easy to take it for granted, but please do not forget about it. Also, I need to add anhydride, such as acetic anhydride. Okay, so then for this, we always name the ether starting with the alkyl side. This is the alkyl side, and this side is the acyl group. So the alkyl side is a methyl, so we say methyl. And then the acyl group is a 4-bromo, benzo. Okay, and this is benzo, not phenol, because when the molecule is beside a carbonyl, because of the carbonyl's carbon is considered as part of a phenol, so then this becomes a benzo automatically. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So benzo. Now, because it's a carboxylic acid derivative, typically we would say benzoic acid, but because it's an ester, we take away ic acid, we keep the O, and we say benzoate. Okay. And some other examples, let's say you have this. You might think, oh, this is okay. Let's say this were a carboxylic acid. You might think, oh, there's two. So this might be ethanoic acid. Okay, but first, we're going to take away ic. Well, actually for amide, we take away that as well. We will use the ending amide. But now, because there are two carbons, and because of this thing, we are now going to name it as acete prefix. So this is actually going to be acetamide. Acetamide. So these are some of the most important rules to keep in mind as you go ahead and do those problems. And I hope this video was helpful.